Science is the great antidote to the poison of enthusiasm and superstition. The first thing you have to know is yourself. A man who knows himself can step outside himself and watch his own reactions like an observer. All money is a matter of belief. The real tragedy of the poor is the poverty of their aspirations. Labor was the first price, the original purchase, money that was paid for all things. It was not by gold or by silver, but by labor, that all wealth of the world was originally purchased. It is not by augmenting the capital of the country, but by rendering a greater part of that capital active and productive than would otherwise be so, that the most judicious operations of banking can increase the industry of the country. Happiness never lays its finger on its pulse. Consumption is the sole end and purpose of all production, and the interest of the producer ought to be attended to only so far as it may be necessary for promoting that of the consumer. What can be added to the happiness of a man who is in health, out of debt, and has a clear conscience? No complaint is more common than that of a scarcity of money. Humanity is the virtue of a woman, generosity that of a man. Never complain of that of which it is at all times in your power to rid yourself. On the road from the city of skepticism, I had to pass through the valley of ambiguity. The propensity to truck, barter and exchange one thing for another is common to all men, and to be found in no other race of animals. As soon as the land of any country has all become private property, the landlords, like all other men, love to reap where they never sowed, and demand a rent even for its natural produce. With the greater part of rich people, the chief enjoyment of riches consists in the parade of riches. Adventure upon all the tickets in the lottery, and you lose for certain, and the greater the number of your tickets the nearer your approach to this certainty. Great ambition, the desire of real superiority, of leading and directing, seems to be altogether peculiar to man, and speech is the great instrument of ambition. Resentment seems to have been given us by nature for a defense, and for a defense only. It is the safeguard of justice and the security of innocence. The real and effectual discipline which is exercised over a workman is that of his customers. It is the fear of losing their employment which restrains his frauds and corrects his negligence. I have never known much good done by those who affected to trade for the public good. This is one of those cases in which the imagination is baffled by the facts. Little else is requisite to carry a state to the highest degree of opulence from the lowest barbarism but peace, easy taxes, and a tolerable administration of justice, all the rest being brought about by the natural course of things. Poor David Hume is dying fast, but with more real cheerfulness and good humor and with more real resignation to the necessary course of things, than any whining Christian ever died with pretended resignation to the will of God. Labor was the first price, the original purchase, money that was paid for all things. Defense is superior to opulence. The theory that can absorb the greatest number of facts, and persist in doing so, generation after generation, through all changes of opinion and detail, is the one that must rule all observation. The greatest improvement in the productive powers of labor, and the greater part of the skill, dexterity, and judgment with which it is anywhere directed, or applied, seem to have been the effects of the division of labor. Nothing is more graceful than habitual cheerfulness. No society can surely be flourishing and happy of which by far the greater part of the numbers are poor and miserable. It is not very unreasonable that the rich should contribute to the public expense, not only in proportion to their revenue, but something more than in that proportion. By pursuing his own interest, the individual frequently promotes that of the society more effectually than when he really intends to promote it. I have never known much good done by those who affected to trade for the public good. Mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. A merchant, it has been said very properly, is not necessarily the citizen of any particular country. It is the highest impertinence and presumption, therefore, in kings and ministers to pretend to watch over the economy of private people, and to restrain their expense. They are themselves, always, and without any exception, the greatest spendthrifts in the society. Every tax ought to be so contrived as both to take out and to keep out of the pockets of the people as little as possible, over and above what it brings into the public treasury of the state. The disposition to admire, and almost to worship, the rich and the powerful, and to despise, or, at least, to neglect persons of poor and mean condition is the great and most universal cause of the corruption of our moral sentiments. It appears, accordingly, from the experience of all ages and nations, I believe, that the work done by freemen comes cheaper in the end than that performed by slaves. Civil government, so far as it is instituted for the security of property, is in reality instituted for the defense of the rich against the poor, or of those who have some property against those who have none at all. The world neither ever saw, nor ever will see, a perfectly fair lottery. Virtue is more to be feared than vice, because its excesses are not subject to the regulation of conscience. A power to dispose of estates forever is manifestly absurd. The earth and the fullness of it belongs to every generation, and the preceding one can have no right to bind it up from posterity. Such extension of property is quite unnatural. People of the same trade seldom meet together, even for merriment and diversion, but the conversation ends in a conspiracy against the public, or in some contrivance to raise prices. The natural effort of every individual to better his own condition is so powerful that it is alone, and without any assistance, capable not only of carrying on the society to wealth and prosperity, but of surmounting 100 impertinent obstructions with which the folly of human laws too often encumbers its operations. The interest of the dealers, however, in any particular branch of trade or manufactures, is always in some respects different from, and even opposite to, that of the public. To widen the market and to narrow the competition, is always the interest of the dealers. Every individual necessarily labors to render the annual revenue of society as great as he can. He generally neither intends to promote the public interest, nor knows how much he is promoting it. He intends only his own gain, and he is, in this, as in many other cases, led by an invisible hand to promote an end which was not part of his intention. Justice, however, never was in reality administered gratis in any country. Lawyers and attorneys, at least, must always be paid by the parties, and, if they were not, they would perform their duty still worse than they actually perform it. How selfish soever man may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature, which interest him in the fortune of others, and render their happiness necessary to him, though he derives nothing from it, except the pleasure of seeing it. Goods can serve many other purposes besides purchasing money, but money can serve no other purpose besides purchasing goods. The problem with fiat money is that it rewards the minority that can handle money, but fools the generation that has worked and saved money. Now many such things may be done without entitling the people to rise in arms. A gross, flagrant, and palpable abuse no doubt will do it, as if they should be required to pay a tax equal to half or third of their substance. An instructed and intelligent people are always more decent and orderly than an ignorant and stupid one. That wealth and greatness are often regarded with the respect and admiration which are due only to wisdom and virtue, and that the contempt, of which vice and folly are the only proper objects, is most often unjustly bestowed upon poverty and weakness, has been the complaint of moralists in all ages. In ease of body, peace of mind, all the different ranks of life are nearly upon a level, and the beggar who suns himself by the side of the highway possesses that security which kings are fighting for. Great nations are never impoverished by private, though they sometimes are by public prodigality and misconduct. Corn is a necessary, silver is only a superfluity. Every man lives by exchanging. It is unjust that the whole of society should contribute towards an expense of which the benefit is confined to a part of the society. Problems worthy of a tax prove their worth by hitting back. The annual labor of every nation is the fund which originally supplies it with all the necessaries and conveniencies of life which it annually consumes, and which consist always either in the immediate produce of that labor, or in what is purchased with that produce from other nations. Wherever there is great property, there is great inequality. The learned ignore the evidence of their senses to preserve the coherence of the ideas of their imagination. Individual ambition serves the common good. What is prudence in the conduct of every private family can scarce be folly in that of a great kingdom. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. Man is an animal that makes bargains. No other animal does this, no dog exchanges bones with another. The subjects of every state ought to contribute towards the support of the government, as nearly as possible, in proportion to their respective abilities. The great source of both the misery and disorders of human life seems to arise from overrating the difference between one permanent situation and another. The division of labor, however, so far as it can be introduced, occasions, in every art, a proportionable increase of the productive powers of labor. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker, that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest. To feel much for others and little for ourselves, to restrain our selfishness and exercise our benevolent affections, constitute the perfection of human nature. The real price of everything, what everything really costs to the man who wants to acquire it, is the toil and trouble of acquiring it. The profligacy of a man of fashion is looked upon with much less contempt and aversion than that of a man of meaner condition. We are but one of the multitude, in no respect better than any other in it. All for ourselves, and nothing for other people, seems, in every age of the world, to have been the vile maxim of the masters of mankind. I have always considered David Hume as approaching as nearly the idea of a perfectly wise and virtuous man as perhaps the nature of human frailty will allow. There is a great deal of ruin in a nation. The furious behavior of an angry man is more likely to exasperate us against himself than against his enemies. In ease of body and peace of mind, all the different ranks of life are nearly upon the same level, and the beggar who suns himself by the highway possesses that security which kings are fighting for. There is no art which one government sooner learns of another than that of draining money from the pockets of the people. The first duty of the sovereign is that of protecting the society from the violence and invasion of other independent societies, which can be performed only by means of a military force. To superficial minds, the vices of the great seem at all times agreeable. I am a beau only in my books. A nation is not made wealthy by the childish accumulation of shiny metals, but it enriched by the economic prosperity of its people. Virtue is excellence, something uncommonly great and beautiful, which rises far above what is vulgar and ordinary. It was not by gold or by silver, but by labor, that all the wealth of the world was originally purchased. The wages of labor are the encouragement of industry, which, like every other human quality, improves in proportion to the encouragement it receives. Every man is rich or poor according to the degree in which he can afford to enjoy the necessaries, conveniences, and amusements of human life. What is the work of one man, in a rude state of society, being generally that of several in an improved one? In the common degree of the moral, there is no virtue. Virtue is excellence.